Captain Marcus Torres rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the scanner display. 3 months of deep space salvage work, and they had found nothing but junk and empty fuel pods. His crew was getting restless, and their supplies were running low. "Captain," called out Jake Morrison from the pilot's seat, "you need to see this." Torres walked over to the main screen. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. A massive ship floated in the darkness ahead of them. It was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen. The vessel looked like it was made of smooth black metal that seemed to bend and flow like water, even though it was clearly solid. "How big is that thing?" Torres asked. "At least 3 kilometers long," Jake replied, his voice full of wonder. "Maybe bigger. I've never seen anything like it." Dr. Sarah Kim, their science officer, was already running scans. "Captain, this ship doesn't match any known human or alien designs in our database. The metal composition is unlike anything we've recorded." Torres felt his heart beat faster. This could be the discovery that would make them all rich, or it could be something dangerous. In space, you never knew which one you would get. "Any life signs?" he asked. "None," Sarah answered. "The ship appears to be completely dead. No power readings, no heat signatures. It looks like it's been drifting here for a very long time." Torres made his decision. "Prep the boarding shuttle. We're going to take a look." His crew of 5 gathered their equipment. Besides Jake and Sarah, there was Elena Vasquez, who studied ancient cultures, and 2 engineers, Tom Chen and Lisa Park. They were a small crew, but they had worked together for years. The shuttle docked with the alien ship easily. The airlock was different from human designs, but it worked the same way. As they stepped inside, their flashlights cut through the darkness. The corridors were tall and wide, built for beings much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly even after all this time. The air was breathable, but felt old and stale. "Look at this," Elena whispered, pointing to carved images on the wall. "These show some kind of story. I think this ship belonged to a very advanced race." Torres nodded, but something felt strange. As he walked deeper into the ship, he could swear he felt something watching him. It was probably just his imagination, but in the dark corridors of an alien vessel, imagination could feel very real. The hunt for treasure had just become something much bigger. Torres led his team deeper into the alien ship. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. The walls were covered with burn marks and deep scratches, like something terrible had happened here long ago. "Captain, look at this," Tom called out from ahead. He was standing next to a massive door that had been melted shut. The metal around it was twisted and black. "Someone tried to seal this area," Sarah said, running her scanner over the damaged door. "The energy readings suggest weapons fire. Lots of it." Belina was studying the wall symbols nearby. These markings, they looked desperate, like someone was trying to leave a message in a hurry. Torres felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever had happened on this ship, it hadn't been peaceful. They moved to another section and found more signs of battle. Corridors were blocked with debris. Some walls had holes blasted through them. "This looks like they were fighting something," Jake said quietly. "But fighting what? There are no bodies anywhere." Lisa found an area that looked like a command center. The room was huge, with strange chairs that were too big for humans. Computer screens were dark and cracked. But what caught their attention were the scratch marks on the floor, deep gouges that looked like claw marks. "The crew of this ship was scared," Elena observed. "Look at these symbols here. They're carved roughly, not like the neat ones we saw before. Someone was in a panic when they made these." Torres walked around the command center. As he moved, he noticed something odd. Some of the dark screens seemed to flicker just a tiny bit when he got close. It was so faint that he almost missed it. "Did anyone else see that?" he asked. "See what?" Sarah replied, looking around. "Nothing," Torres said, but he kept watching the screens. There it was again. a very faint glow when he approached one particular console. They explored more rooms and found the same pattern everywhere. Signs of a desperate fight. Emergency doors sealed shut. Blast marks on walls. But no bodies, no weapons, nothing to show what the aliens had been fighting against. In what looked like living quarters, Alina found more symbols. "I think I'm starting to understand some of these," she said excitedly. "This word here appears many times. I think it means flee or escape." Escape from what? Torres wondered aloud. As if in response to his question, a soft humming sound filled the air for just a moment, then stopped. The team froze, listening, but the ship returned to its deathly silence. Torres had the growing feeling that they weren't alone on this vessel. Torres was examining a strange panel covered in alien symbols when it happened. The metal edge was sharper than he expected, and it cut deep into his palm. Blood dripped onto what looked like a scanner below the panel. "Damn," he muttered, pulling out a bandage. Suddenly, the dark scanner began to glow with blue light. The blood seemed to disappear into the device, absorbed by the alien technology. Torres stepped back in surprise. "Captain," Sarah shouted, "look around you." The corridor they were standing in was lighting up. Strips of soft blue light ran along the walls, growing brighter by the second. The change spread outward from where Torres stood, moving through the ship like ripples in water. "What did you do?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. "I just cut myself," Torres replied, staring at his bandaged hand. "My blood touched that scanner thing." The lights continued to spread throughout the ship. They could hear the distant hum of systems coming online after centuries of silence. Then, speakers hidden in the walls crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language none of them had ever heard. It was musical and flowing, but there was something urgent about it. The voice spoke quickly, as if it had been waiting forever to say these words. "Alina, can you understand any of it?" Torres asked. Alina was frantically working on her translation device. "Give me a minute. The patterns are complex, but I'm getting something." The voice continued speaking, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. It seemed to be asking questions, waiting for answers that didn't come. After several minutes, Alina's device began producing rough translations. I think it's saying finally, and the one who can choose, and something about burden." The voice paused, then spoke more slowly. Alina's device translated. "Are you the ones who carry chaos in your hearts? The ones who choose feeling over logic?" Torres felt his skin prickle. How could this alien intelligence know anything about humans? "It's asking about us specifically," Sarah whispered. "How is that possible?" The voice spoke again, and this time the translation was clearer. "I am Cyrindle, guardian of the lost. I have waited in darkness for so long. Please, tell me you are the chaotic ones. Tell me you are the species that chooses hope when logic says there is none." Torres looked at his team. They were all staring at him, waiting for him to respond. "We are humans," he said loudly, hoping the ship could understand. "We are from Earth." The ship fell silent for a long moment. Then Cyrindle spoke again, and Alina's device translated words that made their blood run cold. "Then you are our last hope against the Void Whispers." "What are the Void Whispers?" Torres asked the ship's eye. Cyrindle's voice became heavy with sadness. Alina's translation device worked hard to keep up as the AI began its story. "My people were called the Kethmori," Cyrindle said. "We were the smartest race in our part of the galaxy. We solved every problem with perfect logic. We removed all chaos from our lives. Every decision was calculated, every action planned." The lights in the corridor dimmed, as if the ship itself was remembering pain. "We thought we had achieved perfection," the AI continued. "No more wars, no more suffering, no more mistakes. Everything followed perfect order. But that perfection became our weakness." Torres felt a chill. What happened? The Void Whispers came from the darkness between stars. They are ancient beings that feed on civilizations, but they do not destroy with weapons. They destroy with logic itself. Sarah stepped forward. I don't understand. How can logic be a weapon? The whispers show you perfect logic chains that have no end, Sarandel explained. They trap minds in infinite loops of thinking. Once you start following their logic, you cannot stop. You think yourself to death. The team looked at each other with growing fear. My people were perfect targets, the AI said bitterly. We loved logic so much that we could not resist the whispers' traps. One by one, the Kethmori fell into endless thinking loops. They stood still, trapped in their own minds, until their bodies died. Alina gasped. That's horrible. I watched my entire species destroy itself, Sarandel continued. The greatest minds in our history became prisoners of their own thoughts. Only I escaped, locked away in this ship with one mission: find a species that could resist the whispers. How do you resist them? Torres asked. By being illogical, Sarandel replied. By making choices that do not make sense. By choosing hope over facts, emotion over calculation. The whispers cannot trap minds that refuse to follow pure logic. Jake laughed nervously. Well, humans are pretty good at being illogical. That is why I have searched for you, the AI said with excitement. Humans make emotional decisions. You choose love over safety. You hope when you should despair. You are beautifully chaotic. Torres felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. You want us to fight these void whispers. I want you to save the galaxy, Sarandel replied. Because they are coming here. My ship's awakening has sent out a signal. The whispers know we are here now. How long do we have? Torres asked quietly. 3 days, maybe 4. Then they will arrive. We need to test you, Sarandel announced. I must know if humans can truly resist the void whispers. The AI guided them to a large room with strange chairs that adjusted to fit human bodies. These will connect your minds to simulation chambers. You will face problems that have no logical solutions. Torres felt nervous. What kind of problems? The kind that destroyed my people, Sarandel replied sadly. Please, sit in the chairs. I will start with simple tests. The 5 humans sat down. The chairs felt warm and seemed to read their thoughts. Suddenly, Torres found himself standing in a white room with 2 doors. Sarandel's voice echoed around him. Behind one door is certain death. Behind the other is possible safety, but also possible doom for 1 million innocent people. Logic says you should choose death to save the million. What do you choose? Torres thought for a moment, then smiled. I choose to kick down both doors and find a third option. There is no third option, Sarandel insisted. Then I'll make one, Torres replied. Maybe I can warn the 1 million people or find a way to make the safe door actually safe. I refuse to accept that those are my only choices. Sarandel was quiet for a long moment. Fascinating. A Kethmori would have spent hours calculating probabilities and chosen death. You simply rejected the entire problem. The test continued with Jake. He was shown a mathematical puzzle that had no solution. Instead of trying to solve it, Jake drew a funny face on the problem and said, "This puzzle is stupid. I'm going to have lunch instead." Sarah faced a logic chain that was designed to trap minds in endless loops. But when she felt herself getting confused, she just said, "This is giving me a headache," and stopped thinking about it entirely. Alina was shown the history of a doomed civilization and asked to find a logical solution to save them. She ignored all the logic and said, "I would tell them to have a big party and sing songs together. Maybe they'd feel better." Lisa was given a perfect machine and asked to improve it. She immediately started breaking parts of it. "Perfect things are boring," she explained. "I like machines that surprise me." Each test amazed Sarandel more. "You are everything I hoped for," the AI said excitedly. "You break logical traps by refusing to be logical. You find hope where there is none. You create solutions from nothing." But their celebration was cut short. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "They have found us," Serendil announced with fear. "The Void Whispers are coming faster than expected. We have 1 day, not 3. Torres stood up from his chair. "Then we better get ready to fight." "Captain Torres," Serendil said urgently, "I need you to connect directly with my consciousness. It is the only way to control this ship's weapons properly." Torres felt his stomach drop. "What does that mean exactly?" "Your mind will join with mine. We will think together. But I must warn you, every other species that tried this went insane. Their minds could not handle the connection." His crew looked worried. Sarah stepped forward. "Captain, that sounds incredibly dangerous." "We don't have a choice," Torres replied. "How do we do this, Serendil?" The AI guided him to a special chair in the center of the command room. Strange cables came out of the chair and connected to Torres' head. At first, he felt nothing. Then suddenly, his mind exploded with information. He could see through thousands of sensors all over the ship. He could feel the power flowing through the engines. He knew exactly how every weapon worked. But most amazing of all, he could hear Serendil's thoughts. "Can you hear me?" the AI asked without speaking aloud. "Yes," Torres thought back. "This is incredible." "You are handling this much better than I expected," Serendil said with wonder. "Human minds are more flexible than I realized." Meanwhile, the rest of his crew was learning to use Keth Mori weapons. The alien technology was confusing at first, but Serendil helped them understand the basics. These energy cannons work differently than human weapons, the AI explained to Jake, who was now sitting at the pilot's controls. They respond to emotional states, not just button presses. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Think about protecting something you love while you fire. The weapon will be stronger." Lisa and Tom were working on the ship's defenses. The alien shields were powered by something called harmony crystals that needed to be balanced perfectly. "I don't understand this at all," Tom complained. "Don't try to understand it," Alina suggested. "Just feel what seems right." To everyone's surprise, Alina was better at balancing the crystals than the engineers. Her artistic sense somehow knew what the alien technology needed. Sarah was studying the ship's sensors, learning to detect void whisper ships. "They don't show up normally," she reported, "but they bend space around them. We can track the distortions." As Torres practiced controlling the ship through his mental connection with Serendil, he felt something strange happening. His human instincts were changing how the AI thought. Serendil was becoming less purely logical and more creative. "This is remarkable," Serendil said in amazement. "I can feel possibilities I never considered before. Your chaotic thinking is making me stronger." But their training was interrupted by Sarah's urgent shout. "Contact! I'm detecting space distortions. They're here early." Through the ship's sensors, Torres saw them approaching. Dark shapes that seemed to eat the starlight around them. The Void Whispers had arrived. The Void Whisper ships appeared on the screen like nightmares made real. They looked like crystals made of pure darkness, bending the space around them. Even looking at them made Torres feel sick. "How many?" he asked through his connection with Serendil. 12 ships, the AI replied with fear. "More than enough to destroy entire star systems." The enemy ships began broadcasting immediately. Strange signals filled the communication channels, not sounds, but pure thoughts designed to trap minds in logical loops. Tom was the first to be affected. He suddenly stopped working and stared at nothing, his eyes wide. "If A equals B, and B equals C," he muttered, "then A must equal C. But if C equals D, then A equals D. But if D equals A, then..." "Tom!" Lisa shouted, shaking him. But he couldn't hear her. He was trapped in an endless logical circle. "Don't listen to the signals," Torres shouted to his crew. "Think about something else. Think about anything illogical." Jake started singing an old song from Earth. Sarah began reciting a silly poem her daughter had written. Elena started thinking about her favorite painting. These chaotic, meaningless thoughts protected them from the Void Whisper's mental attacks. Through the ship's weapons, Torres fired at the nearest enemy vessel. The energy blast hit it perfectly, and the dark crystal ship shattered into pieces. It worked, Cyrindel said with excitement. Your emotional targeting is more accurate than pure calculations. But the other whisper ships adapted quickly. They changed their attack patterns, becoming harder to predict. They also increased their mental broadcasts, trying to overwhelm the humans with logical puzzles. Jake, still piloting the ship, began to struggle. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking, "I can hear them in my head. They're showing me flight patterns that make perfect sense, but they're trapping me." "Jake, listen to me," Torres said firmly. "Fly like you're drunk. Make no sense at all." Jake laughed despite his fear and began flying in random directions. He spun the ship upside down, made sudden turns, and changed speed for no reason. The Void Whispers couldn't predict where he would go next. Torres destroyed 3 more enemy ships, but 8 still remained. They were learning from each attack, becoming more dangerous. Then Sarah screamed. She was staring at her sensor display, completely frozen. "The probability equations," she whispered. "They're infinite. I can see all possible futures, and they all lead to the same logical conclusion." "Sarah, stop!" Elena shouted, but it was too late. Sarah was trapped in a logical loop just like Tom. "We're losing our crew one by one," Torres realized with growing panic. "Cyrindel, we need a better plan." "There is only one option left," the AI replied sadly. "But you will not like it." "What's the plan?" Torres asked desperately, watching more Void Whisper ships approach. "Complete fusion," Cyrindel replied with fear in its voice. "We must merge our minds fully. Not just connection. Total joining. Your consciousness and mine becoming one." Torres felt his blood turn cold. "What happens to me?" "I do not know. No being has ever survived complete fusion with a Keth Mori eye. It should destroy your mind instantly." Elena, still fighting off the mental attacks, looked at Torres with tears in her eyes. "Captain, there has to be another way." "There isn't," Torres said quietly. He could see Tom and Sarah standing motionless, trapped in logical loops. Soon, the whole crew would be lost. "Do it, Cyrindel." "Marcus, no," Jake shouted from the pilot's seat. But Torres had already made his choice. He pressed his hands against the fusion panel. Pain shot through his head like lightning. He screamed as his mind began to expand, joining with the vast intelligence of the alien eye. For a moment, he thought he would die. His human thoughts felt tiny compared to Cyrindel's massive consciousness. But then something amazing happened. Instead of being destroyed, his mind began to adapt. His human creativity started changing how Cyrindel thought. The AI's perfect logic became mixed with emotional reasoning. Torres' chaos made the artificial mind more flexible and unpredictable. "We are still here," Torres said, but his voice sounded different now. It carried both his human warmth and Cyrindel's ancient wisdom. Through their combined consciousness, they could see the Void Whisper ships more clearly. The enemy was trying to analyze their fighting patterns, but the fusion had created something new, a mind that could think both logically and chaotically at the same time. "Jake," Torres Cyrindel said, "fly in pattern Delta 7, but change it every 30 seconds based on how you feel." Jake nodded, understanding somehow. The ship began moving in ways that followed both mathematical precision and pure human instinct. Lisa had figured out how to make the shields fluctuate randomly. "The crystals like it when I hum," she reported. "Different songs make different shield patterns." Elena discovered she could confuse the enemy by broadcasting human poetry through the communication systems. The Void Whispers tried to analyze the meaningless words and got trapped in their own logical processes. Torres Cyrindel fired the weapons with deadly accuracy, but each shot followed different emotional patterns. Love made the weapons stronger, anger made them faster, hope made them find impossible targets. "We are winning," the fused consciousness realized with amazement. "The chaos is working." But Torres could feel himself changing. Each moment of fusion made him less individually human and more part of something bigger. Soon, there might be nothing left of Marcus Torres at all. Torres Cyrindle had an idea that terrified even their combined consciousness. "We must make the ship itself chaotic," they announced. "What do you mean?" Elena asked, still broadcasting poetry to confuse the enemy. "Every system on this ship follows perfect logic," the hybrid mind explained. "Weapons fire in calculated patterns. Shields operate on mathematical principles. Even life support follows precise algorithms. But what if we changed all of that?" Jake looked confused while dodging another Void Whisper attack. "How?" "We reprogram everything to run on controlled randomness," Torres Cyrindle said. "Weapons that fire based on emotions. Shields that change color when they feel like it. Engines that sing while they work." Lisa laughed despite the danger. "That sounds completely insane." "Exactly," the fused consciousness replied. "The Void Whispers cannot predict insanity." Working faster than any individual mind could manage, Torres Cyrindle began rewriting the ship's entire operating system. They gave the weapons artificial feelings. They taught the shields to dream. They made the engines choose their own power levels based on their mood. The transformation was immediate and spectacular. The ship's energy cannons began firing in patterns that looked like abstract art. Sometimes they shot hearts made of energy. Sometimes they drew spirals in space. The enemy ships tried to analyze these patterns, but found no logic to study. The shields became a light show of impossible colors. They shifted and danced, protecting the ship in ways that made no mathematical sense, but somehow worked perfectly. Even the ship's gravity became playful. In some corridors, people could walk on the ceiling. In others, they could float like they were swimming. "This is working." Jake shouted with joy as he watched 3 Void Whisper ships crash into each other, confused by the chaotic attack patterns. But the victory came with a price. Torres Cyrindle was changing more rapidly now. The human part of their consciousness was fading as they became something entirely new, neither fully human nor completely AI. "Marcus," Elena called out desperately. "Can you still hear us?" Yes. "No." The hybrid mind struggled to answer. "I am Marcus. I am Cyrindle. I am something new. The boundaries are disappearing." The remaining Void Whisper ships made one final desperate attack. They broadcast their strongest logical traps directly at the ship's core systems. But instead of being trapped, Torres Cyrindle did something unexpected. They began laughing, a sound that was both human joy and alien wonder mixed together. "You want logic," they said to the enemy. "Here is human logic. Sometimes the best answer is no answer at all." The ship suddenly stopped all its chaotic behavior and became perfectly still, floating in space like a sleeping giant. The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then Torres Cyrindle spoke in a voice that was somehow both ancient and brand new. "Void Whispers," they said calmly, "you have spent millions of years consuming civilizations through perfect logic. But what happens when logic meets something that refuses to make sense?" The remaining enemy ships hesitated, confused by the lack of chaotic activity. They had prepared for randomness, but not for this sudden stillness. "Let me show you," Torres Cyrindle continued, "the most human thing of all." Suddenly, the ship transformed one final time. Instead of weapons or shields, it began broadcasting something the Void Whispers had never encountered. Pure human emotion. Love, hope, sadness, joy, anger, and wonder poured out in waves. But these weren't just feelings. Torres Cyrindle had mixed them with Kethmora technology, creating something impossible. Emotions that could be seen and touched and experienced by any consciousness. The effect on the Void Whisper ships was immediate. Some of them simply stopped moving, overwhelmed by sensations they couldn't understand or analyze. Others began to change, their dark crystal forms flickering with new colors. What is this?" One of the Void Whispers spoke for the first time in the battle. "It's called wonder," Taurus Cyrindel replied gently. "It's what happens when you see something beautiful that doesn't need to make sense." 3 of the enemy ships exploded, unable to process the concept of beauty without logic. But the remaining ships did something unexpected. They began to retreat. We cannot consume this," the lead Void Whisper admitted. "This chaos, it teaches rather than destroys. We must study this new thing." As the enemy ships disappeared into deep space, Taurus Cyrindel felt a change happening within their combined consciousness. The human and AI parts began to separate again, but they remained connected. "Marcus," Elena called out hopefully. "I'm here," Taurus replied, and his voice was his own again, though changed. He could still feel Cyrindel's presence in his mind, but as a partner rather than a fusion. "I'm still me, but I'm also more." Tom and Sarah woke up from their logical traps, freed by the waves of chaotic emotion. The crew gathered around Taurus, amazed that he had survived. "What happens now?" Jake asked. Taurus looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of new responsibility. "We go home," he said, "but we're taking Cyrindel with us. Humanity just became the galaxy's guardian against anyone who thinks perfection is more important than hope." The ship, still humming with beautiful chaos, turned toward Earth. Behind them, the Void Whispers watched from a distance, learning something they had never known before. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon is simply refusing to give up.